I mean, this should be devastating to the entire COVID fake pandemic that the PCR tests failed. And so now in Europe and in the US, the main health organizations run by the government have both said that we're abandoning the PCR test because it was mostly false positives and it couldn't even differentiate between the flu and COVID. So, and it just adds to the frustration because every news story I have on my desk today is InfoWars told you a year ago. But I don't want to get hung up on that right now because I need to finish explaining what's about to happen and why last night I took calls from healthcare workers to try to get ahead of this narrative.
Big tech isn't just censoring, they're murdering people. They're murdering your ability to get medical care. They're take you to this point now. Try to stop now it's coming back. Your body to a
COVID-19 health pass.
Whole rollout and what has been unfolding. And
so if this theory is...
At least we're on air, you know, white...
or vaccination technology.
The raw footage.
Biological and chemical attacks are imminent. They are preparing us. They are going to create a crisis because they know that they can't deal with a real political backlash and the restructuring and the reforming and getting back to the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Biological attack is imminent.
It's 1998.
Imminent. It's going to happen. It's not a question of if, but when there's going to be a chemical or biological attack on the American people. And what is their solution? They say, give up our rights, submit to Big Brother. The same thing Hitler did in 1933 when he said, the Jews, the blah, blah, blahs, they're going to blow something up if I don't take full command and round people up and suspend and set up checkpoints and issue license and papers.
That during the Model States Health Emergency Powers Act, remember 2002, they wanted to have forced inoculation nationwide for smallpox, and it came out in news articles that, oh, yeah, the feds are going to use sports stadiums and postal offices as the centers where if you refuse to be inoculated, you'll be taken and be held, but will also forcibly inoculate if we're given the orders at these injection facilities. I mean, I'm not even worthy to be bringing you information this powerful, and I hope that you pay attention to what we cover here minute by minute, because I've had chills since last night. This just confirms everything else we've already researched. But Rockefeller study envisions future dictatorship controlled by elite, millions being killed, mandatory quarantines, checkpoints, the end of the family, everything that's in the other documents. But this dovetails with all the other Rockefeller Foundation documents about the GMO food to sterilize you and the forced vaccines and the hell we're already living in that's just going to continue to intensify until we take our governments back from these eugenics madmen. The question is, will you have the courage to really do the research yourself? Because I don't want you to just sit here and hear me make these claims. These people are so arrogant that they write policy papers, so many of them, that they're producing these policy papers and reports and white papers so fast that you could never read them all. I pray to God, I pray to my Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, every night to give me the strength and the will to be able to face this horror and to give me the strength to carry on, because I know why a lot of you don't want to look at this information and just want to comment on the YouTube videos or on message boards that I'm a liar. I know why. Because it's scary. You're not going to be able to go to the ball games anymore. You're not going to be able to just go out and get drunk with your friends. You're not going to be able to just, go out and enjoy yourself all the time. Once you face this information, once you've consciously admitted it to yourself, it will take over your life. It should take over your life. Well, I mean, what else? What else could it do? The only chance we've got of beating this scientific dictatorship, this creeping death that takes its time to incrementally enslave you, mentally, psychologically, physically, spiritually. The only way to defeat it is for the rank and file of this planet to realize that you have a choice to make on what your destiny is going to be. Win, lose, or draw, you need to choose a side. You need to spend some time this afternoon, this evening, over the weekend to close the shutters, to sit there in your easy chair, and to just sit back and think about the claims I've made here and decide on whether or not you're going to research the information we've laid out. In its 1968 yearly report, the Rockefeller Foundation acknowledged funding the development of so-called anti-fertility vaccines and the implementation of mass scale. From page 51 onward, we read. And remember, one of Bill Gates' uncles, Bill Gates' dad, headed up Planned Parenthood. They worked for the Rockefellers. We've confirmed that. And this $100+ billion that these 40 billionaires have put in, $38 billion from the Gateses, $38 billion from Buffett, some more billions added by these other billionaires. The Rockefeller Foundation is running this. And remember the Times of London headline, billionaires meet in secret to plan population control, population reduction. And at the end of the article, it talks about a world government to carry this out. What does EcoScience cover? And it says several types of drugs are known to diminish male fertility, but those have been tested have serious problems of toxicity. Yeah, bisphenol A. Rockefeller Foundation developed vaccines for mass-scale fertility reduction. Don't say you weren't warned. They go on to say using vaccines to reduce male fertility was something that needed to be investigated further, according to Rockefeller Foundation, because both the oral pill and the IUD were not sustainable for mass-scale distribution. And, of course, they want to do it by stealth. Oh, get your flu shot. Oh, half of you'll never have kids. The other half will have reduced. See, it's got to be soft kill. It can't hit everybody or it'd be too noticeable. But they're testing how much they can get away with right now. They want to hit those babies in the womb. Kind of like the UN programs worldwide where they only want to help the pregnant women. They come give them shots, and they all have miscarriages on the spot, and they send armed troops to enforce the injections. And that's what America's turning into as well. I mean, you can't ignore this.
Northrop Grumman bragged in a press release that it was going to use its cybersecurity technology to innovate new systems, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but to innovate new systems to track the spread of infectious disease and to develop more aggressive inoculation or vaccination technologies.
Well, what they've said, I remember that coming out a few months ago, that they're going to come out with the new tracking systems where you've got to have your shots to be able to go out and do anything. Well, I mean, they're preparing mass graves, they're preparing forced inoculations, they're preparing under InfraGard lockdowns, under clergy response teams.
You see, everybody's a bunch of followers in this country. When are we going to stand up? When are we going to affect change?
All right, there's literally hundreds of hours of stuff like this that we're going through. But people do like to see stuff I said in the past, so this is not fake, it's not CG, we said it all, and it's not hard. We don't even get the credit. I mean, this is all real. I mean, the globalists want to murder you, and they've got the Pentagon and all the major defense contractors at the top. The new war will be against humanity. They are Skynet. They believe they're the machines. Satan runs Skynet. We are back live, ladies and gentlemen. And we'd have a really entertaining show and be informative and important, but not as important if I just covered news like this. Biden just said he wants to ban handguns, not just semi-automatics. That's video. You can pull it up for yourself at Town Hall. They got the video right there. Biden just said he wants to ban handguns. Here's another one. Such BS. Liar Joe Biden tells CNN Town Hall Democrats
Never said defund the police. That's right. Hell, his own vice president funded the rioters. Joe Biden clarifies that he's not hiding people and sucking their blood. No, just sucking their future and aborting them. You're right. You're just killing kids. You're not sucking their blood. Sleepy Joe rambles about aliens and the man on the moon in shocking fiasco. We could talk about that all day long, but that's a diversion from the world government. The Fortune 100, through the big banks, has created quadrillions, thousands of trillions in fake money. And they look out at you owning your own house, you owning your own business, you having your own, and they don't want that. They want to get rid of the economy and consolidate control with all the money they've got. To do that, they've got to bankrupt you, so you got to sell. It's the old thing of the bank trying to bankrupt the farmers and, you know, hoping that there's a drought. But imagine that on steroids. And then steroids again and again and again. Imagine that up to the power of infinity. And that's what they admit. You're non-essential, your business, your life. And so what did Klaus Schwab say? In fact, guys, we have that clip. I was wanting to get that clip of Klaus Schwab. The one we played a few weeks ago. Oh, we have it. Here's Klaus Schwab, ladies and gentlemen, who really is a supervillain, who really is a terrorist. And here he is just a month ago saying, oh, you think the lockdowns have been bad? No, my pretty. I do more of a Russian accent than a German. I need to get better with my German. It is now time for you to understand that you will be taking microchips and World ID, and you are, should we say, non-essential. And then he goes on to say, if you think it's been a problem with the COVID lockdown, which he later bragged was so good for the earth. Oh, it's so terrible. You don't like the COVID breakdown. Well, now try cyber collapse. But don't worry, you put them globally in charge and have a world ID and an internet kill switches, he'll protect you from their own attacks. Guaranteed. They're behind it all. So here is Klaus Schwab.
Still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cyber.
So use the COVID-19 crisis, which we instituted, to prepare for the cyber attack, which is coming. We will be your boss, though, when it happens, huh? Yes, we get the power. You're non-essential. Meanwhile, he writes books saying, oh, we need a great reset. Oh, we need to shut down the carbon. Oh, this is so great this happened. And then it's their very corporations and the UN that put out the fear and the hysteria and did the lockdown. They're the ones directing it publicly. And then bemoaning the starvation. There's so much starvation around the world now that new lockdowns are needed. And I have trouble doing the Klaus Schwab accent. I have to work on my German accents. It's out of control. It's in your face. It's what's coming next. Really important article I'm going to get posted on Infowars.com. It's from ZeroHedge.com. Klaus Schwab, the humanist versus Klaus Schwab, the terrorists. And they're terrorizing people. They call for more lockdowns to get rid of the middle class. He says everything happening's good. Oh, I am very afraid that you're not going to be liking what happens when the cyber attack happens. Oh, you think you're bankrupt now? And the public just goes along with this, just bows down to this, and it's so obvious. But it doesn't even need to be obvious. They admit they're doing it. They admit they're running it. But people don't want to admit that these are predators because it's too scary. It's, oh, maybe a Muslim's a predator, or we're taught men are predators, or we're taught, white people are really bad. But, oh my gosh, Klaus Schwab and Henry Kissinger, these are good people. So let me take you to this point now. Schwab has been saying, "This is imminent. The cyber attack will end civilization as we know it. I'm so sorry for you, but it is good to end it." And then we've got widespread outage disrupts major retail, financial, travel. NBC. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure website indicated that services were experiencing an ongoing issue, though it was not immediately clear the outage was related. And it goes on to all this other stuff that's down. In fact, guys, when this printed, like I said about an hour ago, I didn't print everything. Just reprint me that. That'd really be awesome. Thank you. And a lot of other major websites were down today. It appears as a widespread outage. Akamai, Content Distribution Network, the CDN, which helps data move around the internet, said on its website it's investigating an emerging issue with Edge DNS service. The company said it expects to provide an update on the service's disruption around 1 p.m. And you know, this all by itself, you say, okay, what's going on? But they talk about using the viruses, using the migrant flows, and using the cyber outages for a great reset and forgive world debt. Soon your computer not work, and soon all the money in the bank be no good. We reset and give you new ID on your phone, like your digital passport for health, and then you will be, by the way, given free money. We will try to retrieve your money, but we will have to pool all the homes and all the mortgages and all the money into a new system, and then it will revalue and you will be given extra money. But until you agree to the reset and the new currency, you will not have any money. And of course, you read the IMF World Bank documents from 2001 that leaked out to Greg Palast, the BBC. We had him on. It was the World Bank and it was the IMF talking about how they were going to do all of this and destabilize society and fund race riots as the cover to collapse society to then consolidate total control, and how it would help to have cyber attacks on banking, and that unstableness would make us accept a world ID and a world system. What is coming down the pipe? The cyber pandemic. Big report up on Infowars.com from the vampire bat himself, Klaus Schwab. But Klaus Schwab is essential. You are not essential. Do you understand? There are major institutions, there are major governments that are pre-prepared for economic collapse, who will consolidate control and become more powerful through the process of the engineered collapse that they themselves have engineered. And so just in the last 15 minutes, I was covering the globalists saying they're going to use cyber outages and attacks to maintain control and bring in their power. We've got major outages being reported across the United States. Well, now this is being reported. FedEx, UPS, Airbnb, and Delta Airlines websites all reporting outages as 911 lines down along the East Coast. Yeah, if you can't get rid of the police, just get rid of the 911, huh? This is economic warfare. Put a crypt keeper up on TV who can't even talk. Demoralize everybody. That's how you take the country down. It's going quite well. And the average yuppie that signed on to all this actually knows it's a takedown of America. They believe they're all about to be put in charge, the average trendy. They're going to lose everything they've got, but that's why you call them useful idiots. Multiple major U.S. companies have been knocked offline today due to a nationwide outage, including Airbnb, FedEx, Delta Airlines, and HBO Max. Down Detector also flagged issues with Fidelity, USAA, UPS, Home Depot, Southwest Airlines, Costco, Amazon's website, and around midday today. This is happening now. Agencies affected include Steam, Newegg, LastPass, Charles Schwab, Akamai, Discover, DraftKings, McDonald's, Expedia, Google, JP Morgan Chase, Groupon. It goes on. The Olympic Games website reportedly intermittently down just hours before The opening ceremony of thousands of other retail, financial, and travel websites battled technology problems. And again, who shut down the pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline that cost $15 billion to build? The globalists. Who shot down and shut down the Colonial Pipeline? The globalists. Who did all this? They're the ones sabotaging. They're the ones opening the borders. They're the ones shipping in the fentanyl. They're the ones demoralizing. We're under attack. But we think because, oh, we're America, we're the superpower, we're completely sold out. By the way, I misspoke. We have a big medical doctor who I had on MIT, you name it. Hell, like a year ago. And he's going to join us next hour on the latest on COVID-19 and what's unfolding there. And then Tommy Robinson. You haven't heard from him in a year on air. I got a call from him at like 5 a.m. this morning, right as I was waking up. And he was in court today for his speech and attacked. And we've been in and out of communication. We're going to get an update from him in the last 15 minutes of the next hour. Then Mike Adams is taking over in the fourth hour today, obviously with a lot of key information. But when I tell you that intellectually I'm upset about what's happening and my spidey sense is off the charts right now, it's just, this is all an exercise in economic warfare to discredit the United States and bring us down. There it is, a big announcement by the FCC. FCC announces nationwide emergency alerting test on August 11, 2021. Yeah, they're going to start doing force-coded transmissions. That's the internet kill switch when they test that hardwired to all your TVs, all radio, all cell phones. And I've been telling you about this forever. This has been the plan. And now they're rolling it out. So, really sorry, folks, but nobody helped those babies getting chopped up in their mommies. So, we're going to get hurt real bad. I'm sorry, everybody. Tried to stop it. I know you tried to stop it. But, hey, at least we're on air still, by the grace of God and your support, and at least we've tried to build redundancy and backups under attack to try to get the word out. We've also got a lot of infrastructure behind the scenes to reach out to our radio and TV stations, the ones that are able to stay on the air in the future, and we'll be able to send them direct feeds from us. And then under that type of situation, those local stations will be very special because they'll be able to then be information hubs into what we're facing. Like I said, I've really done my best try to stop this. And people always ask when there's a big war, like, why did the Soviets do this? Or why did Hitler do that? Or why did they attack? And it's just they want power. And you're like, but they're going to lose in the end. Well, they better lose or we're all dead. Because they don't want to just conquer us. They want to poison us and dumb us down and then suck all the money out of us while we die. While they sit around and laugh because they're the little white lab-coated scientists. They know best. They're smarter than us. You know, they're invincible. And I just want all of them to know you're not invincible. And even if you were able to enslave all of humanity and disease us and mutate us and deform us and torture us for your own sick pleasure, you will face God. And all your talk about immortality and how you're going to merge the machines is all a parlor trick. It's all sleight of hand. It's all a fraud. And I don't buy into any of it. By the way, I don't ever tell this story almost every day where I go, oh, you know, a big national talk show host just sent me this. It's not a cryptic name drop. It's like, I am so excited that all the big household names you can think of that are fighting tyranny now, other than Sean Hannity, he says, you know, take your shots. And I guess the government visiting Fox saying, promote the vaccines, got Hannity to go along. But, you know, Hannity's a Boy Scout. He thinks he's playing it safe. But you know, nothing against Hannity. He can do what he wants. He can be on that side of history and toady around. But and I still forgive Trump for it too, because I don't think Trump knows fully what he's involved in. But that's okay. I mean, it is pretty dystopic to admit that things are this bad. You know, Trump's all about believing positive things. That's great to cheerlead an economy, but you're actually taken over by something evil to then kind of deny it, which Trump isn't really doing. But you know what I mean. I got sent this because I was on the phone 2 nights ago talking about these articles out of the UK. And then I was ferreting around trying to read the studies. And I'd forgotten to actually send this to the crew, but a little bird sent it to me. So we've got this. This is a pretty big deal right here. This is the actual British government documents. The National Health Service, the Public Health England. I get an overhead shot over here, please. Thanks. This is where I'm right here. Thanks. And it says SARS-CoV-2 variants of concern and variants under investigation in England. And I told you a year and a half ago, their cover for it not working will be it's a variant, but it's all just made up crap off PCR test. But they go and admit that 60+% of the people getting COVID and even more of the percentage of those dying have been vaccinated. So when you hear 99% of the people dying from COVID weren't vaccinated, that's like saying pigs fly and the Easter Bunny's real and Santa Claus is real. It's not true. But you can go read this whole technical briefing 15. It's already a month old from June 11th. And this is just them covering why it doesn't work and why the people taking the shots are dying of COVID. When, of course, it's the vaccine killing them. Or the vaccine removing their immunity that now allows regular things to kill them. And then if they've got any viral material in their body of any virus, they then say it is COVID-19. So there's one of the reports. And I mean, good luck reading these. I've tried to read these things, but it's all right there. So, of course, they don't get you in a bear trap like this and let you out. They don't snap their teeth down on you and then go, oh, you took your shot, things are back to normal. They're never back to normal. That's the trap. The average leftist goes, you know, it's you guys not taking the shots while the lockdown's coming back. Really? Really? You really believe that? Yes, you want to stay locked down, fool. All right, we got a special guest, a medical doctor, MIT trained, joining us next hour to get into COVID and a lot more. And we got other really informative doctors that have filed this lawsuit dealing with the real numbers of COVID deaths according to the real reporting systems. They're going to be joining us tomorrow. But I wanted to play a clip from an article on Infowars.com by Adnan Salazar. It's a whole bunch of doctors in a online Zoom meeting. Warns of the threat that the majority of vaccinated patients could have permanent heart damage. Some may die within 3 years. Well, we already have death. We already have them admitting that it can cause lesions on the brain and strokes, and it can cause heart attacks for the body to attack its own organs, like the liver and the lungs. So here they are talking about, this is Dr. Charles Hoff.
So far, I've got 62% positive elevated D-dimer, which means that the blood clots are not rare. That's what the so-called experts keep telling us. The clots are rare, the big ones are rare, but the small ones are clearly happening in the majority of people, 62%. Now, I'll tell you what the real concern with this is that a clotted vessel is permanently damaged. That vessel never, ever goes back to normal. So if this theory is correct, which it really looks like by these D-dimer results, and I'm told it has been done in Australia and it's been done in the UK, and they also found elevated D-dimers. And they sort of discarded the information because they said there's no clinical evidence of clots. Well, the reason is because they're microscopic and they're scattered, and so you're not going to see clinical evidence. But in fact, all of the frequent side effects of the shot, which are headache, nausea, dizziness, fatigue, could all be signs of cerebral thrombosis on a capillary level. I mean, those literally, you could be having thousands and thousands of tiny, tiny little clots in your brain that won't show on a scan, but they will give you those exact symptoms. So the concern is, I have now got 6 people in my medical practice that cannot exert themselves the way they used to be, what medically we call reduced effort tolerance. 6 people who now get out of breath doing things that they could previously do without any problem. So I believe that these people blocked up thousands and thousands of capillaries in their lungs, in these 6 people. So I believe these people now have permanently damaged lungs because they have got, I mean, and that's why they get out of breath. I have one fellow that used to walk 2 miles to my office every week for a shot for his arthritis. And he says after a quarter of a mile, he's done. In other words, his effort tolerance is reduced to 1/8 of what it used to be.
And what did Dr. Fauci fund in 2012, the University of Texas Level 4 Bioweapons Research Facility at Galveston? 3 different vaccines that were designed to have the body attack the spike protein, not the RNA of the virus. And they said at the end of the study, they said, do not make a human vaccine for this. Extreme caution. It killed most of the mice. That's one study. Funded by the NIH and by the National Infectious Disease Allergy Centers and all of them. Fauci's name's at the top of it. So Fauci didn't shoot in the dark with this. They didn't just accidentally make this at Wuhan and release it and scare us and then censor everybody so we couldn't talk about it and then roll it out and then, oh my God, the vaccine doesn't work, so you need more shots, and oh, the vaccine lowers your immunity, oh, and the vaccine makes your body create blood clots. They did it. Look at that arrogant little murderer, Fauci, when he's in the Congress. Arrogantly just staring back because he was involved in the HIV attack. He was involved giving them AZT in Africa to kill everybody as a treatment. It's what he does, ladies and gentlemen. So you can debate how bad the virus is all day and even if it's real and all the rest of it, but the vaccine they made to counter the protein that they souped that virus up with, the gain of function, the HIV delivery system, that's what it is. It's what the top scientists and Nobel Prize winners scan the virus. But that's all a side issue. Yeah, we know the same amount of folks died roughly last year, died the year before. It was a hoax. Most people that died had the flu or pneumonia and they wouldn't give them medical treatment. They died at home. That was it. You don't have your vitamin C and D, you'll die of any virus. But everybody keeps debating whether it's real or not. The damn vaccine's real. The fact that it teaches your body to attack protein itself to create blood clots, it's real. Whatever the hell's in it. And the head UK government facility that tested it said it gets rid of your immune system, and I played that clip yesterday. And you go, why would they say it out in the open? Because they're normalizing it. They're like, yeah, we're going to teach your 3-year-old to get blowjobs in preschool. Yeah, we're going to teach them they're really a girl, they're a boy. Yeah, we're going to teach a girl she's a boy. Yeah, we're going to have her at 10 cut her breast off. Because we're Satanists, we're crazy people, and we're getting away with it, and you put up with it, so what? Now, we've got one of the first doctors to go public over a year and now a half ago, Dr. Andrew Kaufman from MIT and the University of South Carolina. And we're going to try to give him the floor to go over what's really happening and what's unfolded since he issued all these warnings. So I'll do the best to give him the floor coming up. And then we have Tommy Robinson joining us, who has been off the radar for a year. And I barely talked to him the last year. I knew I sent him money and equipment. He was going to make a documentary about grooming gangs, and he's still working on it. And then, boom, I see the trailer for his film up on Band.video, and it's about that whole controversy that came out where they said that a Muslim kid was waterboarded. That's not true. And then he went and covered it and got demonized and attacked. And so he's made a film, and I don't know if he's going to release it or who's going to release it, but I know that he was in court today, and they supposedly said he can't release his film. So they're going to rule that he's liable and then say he can't release his film with the witnesses and the video of what really happened. Because we all know Muslims have never done anything wrong in the history of the world. So he's going to be popping in, and then Mike Adams is going to be hosting 45 minutes of the 4th hour, The Health Ranger. I can handle stress, but I'm been telling you this for weeks. I was going to take off next week. And then, of course, where I'm going, it turns out, is about wildfires here in the U.S., so I don't know if I can do that. But I need to just spend time with my children and to disconnect from this and hide my cell phone because I understand this is stressful. Believe me, I wish none of this was true. But we're going to go through this together. But it's really dawned on me just how bad it is. But really realize this is all a test. And it's like Voight said, you know, when God touched his heart, it isn't supposed to be easy. This is a process we all got to go through together. But it's simply incredible how serious and real this is. So I want to thank you all for keeping us on air. We have 2 specials that will end in the next week. We have Winter Sun, the highest quality vitamin D3 at 50% off. A small shipment of that got in. That'll be sold out, I think, in a week at 50% off. So you want some Winter Sun to boost your immune system. It's always great. About as high end. You know, I'm sure there might be something better. I don't know about it. But it's just the highest end we can find of organic vitamin D3 and vitamin K taken out of the tongue sublingually. It is 50% off. X2 in the dropper bottle is selling out. The spray bottle is back to regular price because it's about to sell out. But we're going to keep the X2 dropper bottle on sale until it does sell out. It looks like we'll probably get more in a few months, but it's for your libido, mainly your immune system, your stamina. It's essential. And the globalists bet so much on hitting you with bad halogens that block the good halogen, iodine. There's one good halogen and a whole bunch of bad halogens. And if your body doesn't have the good halogen, it will use fluoride, chlorine, bromide, you name it. That's why they bomb you hard with that. We have the green fiber made up of the green shoots of the all the best types of shoots. So it has all the amino acids, a bunch of vitamins and minerals. It's really a high-end green fiber from the wheatgrass and so much more. That's $19.95. It's all at InfoWarsStore.com. And it takes a lot of money to have your own satellite uplinks, your own shows, and your own lawyers, and your own infrastructure, and your own encoders, and all of it. But thanks to you, you kept us on air, and we really appreciate you. So I would just encourage everybody to go to InfoWarsStore.com and get their Winter Sun, their X2 while they still can. And we have a lot of great T-shirts and books and films as well. We have the new stickers, too, that go on your door saying no contact tracers. Guess I got to stick that on my door because they say they're coming to our houses in Austin. We, quote, better comply with them. And, of course, Bill Clinton's foundation runs it. And Google got the money to control it from our governor. All right, we'll be right back with hour number 3. Stay with us, and please tell folks tune in. You'll want to hear what this doctor has to say. All right, next segment, we're joined by a very important guest who's been blowing the whistle since day one, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, about what's really happening with COVID, the vaccines, and all of it. Really appreciate him joining us. That's coming up next segment. But now the police in France, all over the country, have joined the demonstrators. This report's from 5 days ago. Now the police have joined them all over the country, saying no to forced inoculations. That's the good news. So here's what was happening just a few days ago. Now you know the new developments.
Fragmented global architecture is not fit anymore for purpose in the 21st century. It's high time for a great reset.
On August 1st, President Emmanuel Macron's France will require a COVID-19 health pass for anyone entering a restaurant or cafe, a shopping center, hospital, or taking a long-distance train due to the fear-mongering surrounding the dreaded Delta variant.
Vaccinations are really about individual freedom. Everyone can choose. That's not the theme here today. The theme is about the absence of freedom that is unfortunately continuing to grow in this country. That's it. They're taking away our freedoms little by little. Vaccinated or not, we are all together.
Beginning July 21st, anyone over the age of 12 will also be required to show the pass to visit a movie theater, a museum, a live theater, a theme park, or cultural center. Macron's government also decided to make vaccines compulsory for all healthcare workers.
We need to strive for having vaccination levels at near 100% across France, because that is the only way we will have a sound future. This is why, for those healthcarers and working in hospitals, clinics, retirement homes, people working in disabled care facilities, anyone who works in a professional capacity or volunteer capacity, working with the elderly or the most fragile people at home, they will have to be vaccinated without waiting. It is compulsory for them. As of the 15th of September, checks will be carried out and fines and sanctions will be handed down for anyone who is not vaccinated. For all of those people who, for the time being, have had no dose of the vaccine. We have options available for you.
Macron's big stick approach is slightly being walked back, but the penalties under the draconian law mean that people in France who enter a bar or a restaurant without a COVID pass face 6 months in jail, while business owners that fail to check their status face a 1-year prison sentence and a €45,000 fine. Known officially as the EU Digital COVID Certificate, the pass shows whether a person has been vaccinated against COVID-19, tested negative, or recovered from COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Mockingbird media continues to fuel the tyranny plaguing humanity.
This Delta variant has me very concerned. As long as there are these clusters of people who have not been vaccinated, I mean, can the Delta variant or another variant eventually penetrate the protection we thought we had from the vaccine?
As long as the virus is alive and proliferating, there is the possibility for mutations that could potentially evade the immunity of the vaccines that we have.
As protesters in the French provinces of Canada refuse semis hauling vaccines,
the news people, please don't lie.
So we're being asked to let a vaccine truck proving that vaccines are important, but yet if we're vaccinated, we aren't allowed to travel. So how are the vaccines important? No vax trucks past this point!
back in France, the rioting and large-scale protests have already reached colossal proportions as the French people grapple with Macron's full-blown dictatorship, all in the name of the advancement of a new world order. John Bound reporting.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to break here in just about 30 seconds, and we are going to come back with our special guest, Dr. Andrew Kaufman. He's been one of the main people accurately raising the alarm in the last 16 months about what's unfolding. And so he's the expert. I want to give him the floor when we come back and really have him lay out wherever he wants to start, the history of it, where he thinks it's going, the incredible authoritarian nature of this, and so much more. And in my view and others' view, this violates the Nuremberg Code, all these attempts at forced injection. We got a bunch of big medical doctors joining us on the show tomorrow, and I've got a big stack of those guys that are going to be joining us. And I've got this report here. Former Pfizer BP destroys media hit piece, attacks his warnings about COVID injection and calls them a pack of lies. That's the former Pfizer Vice President and Chief Science Officer, Michael Yeadon. And we're working to get him on the show. We have several big medical doctors on the broadcast tomorrow who have filed these lawsuits dealing with the numbers of dead in the VAERS reporting system and other systems. So look for that to be coming out tomorrow. Here's that report right here. Shock. Doctor warns the majority of vaccinated patients could have permanent heart damage. Some may die within 3 years, and there is a lawsuit being filed over that. Again, those guys are going to be joining us on the broadcast tomorrow. But right now, we're going to Dr. Andrew Kaufman. He is a psychiatrist. He has a BS from MIT and an MD from Medical University of South Carolina. I'm not going to go over his whole background and all the books he's written and the things he's done, but from the very start, he has been criticizing this whole rollout and what has been unfolding. And so I've got so many questions for him, but the best way to do this is just thank you for coming on and then let him start where he thinks is best. So Dr. Kaufman, thanks for coming on with us.
Well, thank you, Alex. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Where do you want to start? I'm going to try to give you the floor here to break this down.
Well, I really appreciate that. And, I like to start at the beginning because what happened is, since the announcement of a pandemic in March of 2020, we have been experiencing a total change in the way our government handles things. And essentially what they've done is an end run around the legislative process and taken away many of our freedoms. And now, of course, they're putting a lot of pressure on us to take an experimental so-called vaccine. And so when this started occurring, I said, I want to start at the root cause because really everything that has happened has been justified by the virus. So I thought I'd start at square one. And, I come from a scientific and medical background, so I'm able to read the literature and understand what things are what. And so I started looking at the articles where they say that they've discovered a novel coronavirus. And what I uncovered is that they put forth this experimental criteria that proves the existence of a virus, but when you take a closer look, it's actually the experiment itself that gives them the proof they need, even if you don't even have any source of a virus in the experiment at all. And this was actually carried out recently by Dr. Stefan Lanka in Germany, who showed that he got the same proof of a virus by doing the experiment without any source of a virus whatsoever. And so I learned that they've never actually taken a sick person and pulled a virus out of a sick person directly and got it by itself in a purified, isolated form so that they could study it. Instead, what they've done is essentially use a computer to generate what they call an in silico genome, which is completely computer generated. And we know this by several ways. One, simply just looking at the experiments that they do, you can see that they don't start with an organism with one piece of genetic material. They start with a big mixture that they don't even know what's in it. But also, the alleged PCR diagnostic test, which is based on this genome sequence, was actually used before they even had shown the presence of this new virus in any way. In fact, it was made completely based on the published genome sequence from the SARS virus in 2003, which also, by the way, was an in silico genome. And then we've seen other evidence. For example, the pictures that we see allegedly showing this virus, now many of them are just artistic renderings created by a graphic artist and have nothing to do with reality. But the pictures that are from an electron microscope that are in black and white that show these round particles with the so-called spike dots on the outside, that those have actually been shown in regular kidney biopsies from as early as 1999, when those people had nothing to do with SARS-CoV-2, obviously, or any virus. And in the literature, the scientists, the kidney doctors who wrote this paper, they said straight out, these particles are indistinguishable from what they call viruses, and this would be a point of confusion and should be paid attention to. And even in their article, they alluded to the CDC, which actually published another paper about this issue previously. And so all of the scientific community is somewhat aware of this confusion, but they never acknowledge it, and they just basically pretend that this virus is real. And why this is so important is because obviously if there is not an actual virus that's even been discovered to be real, then you can't have a genome, it can't cause a disease, it can't spread from person to person or do anything if it doesn't exist. And once you can understand this based on the evidence that is widely available and published, then it's really easy to understand everything else that's going on. And of course, all the fears about your health being affected by this invisible boogeyman simply disappear.
All right, well, I'm not a medical doctor of the human brain like you are, but I've interviewed psychiatrists, I've interviewed MDs, I've interviewed brain surgeons, I've interviewed virologists, epidemiologists, and we just see armies of them everywhere basically agreeing with what you're saying. You've been one of the first to come out early and talk about this, but most doctors, my family doctor thinks this is all staged and a fraud, and it says this new so-called vaccine destroys your immune system. And then I've got all the British reports from their own government admitting it. And so this is very Orwellian for me. I've never felt so gaslighted as I do constant research, and then they just meet us with this wall of shut up, you're wrong, even though everything they say is not true. And then Fauci's perjuring himself. Okay, did it come out of a lab? So my listeners are like, wait, is it real? Did it come out of a lab, Jones? Or is it totally a fraud because the PCR test we know is a scam? And as you said, I've read the same reports where they admit they never isolated it. They used computers like Theranos did a few years ago to supposedly find cancer. We now know that was a fraud. So I really see parallels between Theranos and what's currently happening. Can you give us your take on that?
Yeah, well, you know, you make an excellent point, and this is really the reason why they're pushing so hard with the censorship right now, because they don't want the voices of these doctors who realize the fraud and the scam that's going on to make those things public, because they want everyone to just comply and take this vaccine. So really, you know, that's kind of what we're facing. But, you know, if you actually look at the science, and, you know, all the science I looked at is either just from peer-reviewed studies published in the main literature and from the government websites, you know, it's all there. But what they do is they just walk these talking heads in front of us, you know, like Dr. Fauci and many others who are really, you know, they're kind of in on it, probably getting paid, or they're getting a lot of notoriety from basically echoing, you know, this tagline that's all over the mainstream media. But you know, it's really difficult for many of the doctors because they know that their job is at risk, you know, if they go public with this, and, you know, just like what's happened to me and many others.
But I'm still very impressed by the countless army of prestigious scientists, doctors, former chief scientists at Pfizer. I mean, the discoverer of HIV. I mean, all these people basically saying this is a giant fraud. When we come back, I want to go back to the original numbers that woke you up. We'll talk about those, tell folks where to go look it up for themselves, and then ask you, you know, as somebody that studies the brain. Obviously, they admit this is psychological warfare. The British government admits they're, quote, brainwashing the public with fear. How do we counter that? Because I've even got family that are smart people, have high IQs, who still just said, you know, shut up, take the shot, we'll never be free till we do. And now they're saying, hey, taking the shot doesn't make us free. So how do we get people out of a mass Stockholm syndrome? I'm not the psychiatrist like you, but I'll ask you that question when we come back. Thank you, Doc. All right, Dr. Andrew Kaufman has been trained at MIT and the University of South Carolina. He's an author, researcher, but he's a psychiatrist. He went off the mainline science in Germany, in the U.S. I'm not a trained psychiatrist. I'm not a trained medical doctor. I've had him on. I've read this. All I know is everything Fauci says is a lie. He says 99% of the deaths are from the unvaccinated. I go look at the British and U.S. reports. It's the opposite. They admit the PCR test is 94% false positive. New York Times. You question that, you get banned on Twitter. They're censoring congressional hearings. They're definitely covering up what's going on. Big Tech's in bed with Big Pharma. And he's one of the first prominent people to take the medical research that was out there and talk about it over a year ago and say this is a scam. They haven't even isolated the virus. They're using computers to claim that they find the material from it and then saying it exists. And so that's my layman way of putting it. Then they say there's these new variants, so we've got to continue the lockdowns and the rest of it, but they never show evidence of that. And I guess that's really not your current, I mean, previously you were just pointing out the whole thing had issues. Now you're basically, unless I'm wrong, you're saying that the variant particularly is really something they have no proof of. So please quantify that for us, sir, in layman's terms.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I described before that they sequenced this entire genome, and they did this in a way where they had basically fragments of genetic material from whatever would be in someone's lungs who is sick, which would be a lot of different things. And there turns out that there's like 56 million individual little fragments of RNA, and they sequence those, and we don't know where any of those individual fragments are from because we didn't get it from a virus, right? And we don't even know that there is a virus because it wasn't even shown. So basically they put these fragments into a computer, and the computer combines them into over 3 million possible genomes. And they pick one of those, tweak it to make it look like a bat coronavirus, which probably was a predetermined outcome. And then they put that and they say, this is the index genome, okay? So then what they do is they put out a set of instructions, like a recipe, of how anyone around the world can now do this experiment, except what they're going to do is, in the end, they're going to compare it to that index sequence, which is totally contrived by a computer. But since they're never going to get an exact match right? Because they're not actually testing a real thing, right? They're just combining all these random sequences together. So every time they repeat the experiment by this recipe around the world, and there's been something like, I think someone said 40,000 of these that have been done, not one matches exactly. They all are a little bit off. And this is what happens when you try to repeat an experiment that's invalid, is that you don't get the same results. But of course, all these different results, they call variants. And this is a very important scheme to not only continue the fear, but to ramp it up and then use this to justify everything. But they haven't isolated and characterized any one variant at all. And they've never done any studies even where they look at the actual clinical outcomes. Generally, what they do is they do some kind of computer simulation that says this may be more transmissible or more dangerous, but it's really probably, just people sitting around and saying, how can we make this scary? And how can we fudge the science to make it look like it backs that up?
So isn't this the ultimate Salem witch trial 2.0, where it's this nebulous thing you can't see? There's no proof of it. If you throw somebody in and they sink and die, they're not a witch. But if they float, they're a witch, but you still kill them, basically. I mean, it just sounds like it lets this medical tyranny take over.
Absolutely. And, from the scientific establishment perspective, it's like in this field, and you see very few people are reporting on exactly how they do this computer genome sequencing, because they make it impossible to understand. It's like 3 different disciplines, like computer science, right, which they know nothing about biology. You have geneticists, which probably know very little about viruses, and then virologists. And they're trying to come together, and it's like the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing, so no one fully understands that the whole thing is a sham.
Wow. So I guess the Emperor's New Clothes would be a better allegory. What's the best allegory of this? Emperor's New Clothes?
I think that's a good one.
Wow. Again, what do you make of Theranos? We know Bill Gates was heavily involved funding that. They claim they had this test that could find cancer. It used a bunch of computers and blood tests and other things. Turned out it was a complete fraud. I see parallels with Theranos and what's happening with this, Doctor.
Well, if you start looking through the literature at technologies that they plan to use for various, insidious and evil purposes, you find thousands of articles. And these include many things like gene therapy, which is what we're getting at here. Also, various types of nanotechnology involving magnetic nanoparticles, hydrogels, graphene, machine-brain interfaces. Like, there is a whole world, and this technology is not in its infancy. There are actually many of these devices that have been already used in experiments and shown to work. I mean, for example, they even have nanotechnology that's called, it was originally optogenetics, and then they've changed it to magnetogenetics. And they basically put an animal with this thing injected into their body in a magnetic field, and they can control and alter the behavior of these animals. So we're really, on the precipice of a major paradigm shift towards this kind of transhuman technology that Kurzweil and many others have talked about for decades.
It's incredible. I've been spending 5-6 hours a day till I'm totally exhausted reading medical literature that I don't understand most of it. Then I go and try to find out what they're saying about it. But you just mentioned it. They call these new life forms. They debate, are these new species? Are these new aliens? And they go, whatever they are, we're putting them in you. It's a revolution. We're going to see what's going to happen. So really, it's like the medical biotech system is raping humanity in a weird mass experiment of mad scientists. I think that's the best way I'd quantify it, Doctor.
Well, I totally agree. And, this kind of segues right into the question you were asking before about the Stockholm Syndrome, because, certainly we know that fear is a major manipulative force, and that you can condition people and manipulate them in all sorts of ways. And, many of the techniques that have been used in this marketing campaign through the media and other sources, come right from Edward Bernays and other people who were instrumental in developing propaganda as a discipline. And then we find out that there were actually psychologists hired by the UK and probably many other governments, but there was a whistleblower from the UK, and they were hired by their, health service essentially to come up with strategies to maximize the fear in the population.
And doctor, stay there. I'll pull the articles up during the break. We'll get more into Stockholm Syndrome. Your psychiatrist, you can talk about it, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, because what he's mentioning is in the news. They, quote, mind control, create maximum fear, and Yale was also involved, not just Oxford and Cambridge. We'll be right back. Look, they made a lot of science fiction movies and authoritarian movies where the government uses the fear of a virus to take control. V for Vendetta did that back in 2005, 2006, whenever it came out. They're now deleting a video that a report I shot in 2018, reading the Rockefeller Lockstep program, and it got like 5-6 million views. They took it off Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's back up there with like 1 million views this morning. I'm sure it's down now. But they're saying it's vaccine disinfo. So if I had a time machine and I came forward in time, it'd be better, or went back in time. I wasn't talking about this currently. I was talking about how governments were saying and foundations were saying they would use this for control. So Dr. Andrew Kaufman is uniquely suited to talk about this from MIT and also a psychiatry degree. Report, government scientific advisors admit they use, quote, totalitarian fear tactics to control people during pandemic. This came out in mainstream British news. Federal government and Yale are holding clinical trials on how best to persuade Americans to take the vaccine. That was last year. The proclamation of national mental health awareness, and they've got a lot of stories showing this. Then we see the mind control. MSN.com, they have the Pentagon involved, they have the British military involved. I'm sorry, but it's too late. Alabama doctor talks about treating unvaccinated COVID patients, says they beg for the vaccine. So, again, we're talking to a psychiatrist who saw this early on, also MIT trained, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, who I really appreciate joining us. I've only got 2 segments left. I could talk to you for 10 hours, but you mentioned this. You talked about Stockholm Syndrome. Finish that thought, then go wherever you want.
Yeah, well, you can see that there's just a major effort everywhere to control people's thinking on this and make sure that they don't question what's going on. And, I really compare this to a cult-like situation because, the television, for example, and I would say, the number one way to get people out of this state would be to eradicate the television or their access to the television, because if you look back at the patents, they actually use a special technology of the rhythm of how they refresh the images to put you in a suggestive brain state, an alpha wave state, which is, good for learning, but it's also good for hypnosis and programming, right? Which they call it television programming. So this is a very insidious but very strong campaign to get you to believe these false notions about what's going on, and much of it is about sensationalizing the fear and danger aspect, because that's what will manipulate you to comply and to be afraid to question what's going on. But, many people are realizing that the allopathic healthcare system, which is turning into this, biosurveillance and transhumanist establishment, is not available for people anymore, right? And they've been afraid to go to the hospital because of the virus. The hospitals have canceled many services. There have been major layoffs of nurses and pharmacists and other personnel. So it's not available the same way, and people are looking for alternatives. And this is an amazing opportunity to move toward, the future of healing, where we can actually address health in a true, realistic way, where people can actually heal and recover completely from disease and not be dependent for lifelong pharmaceuticals just to manage their symptoms. And I know that, you promote this area because many of the things you sell on your shop are agents that promote this type of real healing.
Let me ask you this question, because I'm really impressed. I've seen your videos, and I'm so honored to have you. Hopefully you can come on sometime for a commercial-free special podcast. Those are very popular as well. But again, I just take this in layman's terms, street smarts. I don't have any psychological training like you do. This upsets me a lot. It doesn't make me feel afraid of a virus. It makes me afraid of the authoritarianism. And most people I know, still some are buying it, but a lot of others are getting very upset. A lot of very calm, nice people really recognize this as a threat. And I don't think the medical establishment realizes what they've done, because there's a lot of good people, you know, in the mainline medical establishment, as we all, I think, agree. But the fact that corporations have taken it over and are now exploiting the fear has really caused some major repercussions. And the fact that we had so much trust in the medical system, and I agree with you, that's now evaporating. I don't think this plan went the way Bill Gates and others thought it would.
Well, you know, if we reference back to those, you know, what I call planning documents, like the 2010 lockstep Rockefeller document, right? But there are many, many others from a variety of organisms, including, you know, the SPARS simulation and Event 201, that there's indication from many of these documents that the timeline of when this, you know, operation, because I really think this is most accurately described as a psychological operation, and I'm talking about the pandemic, that they, you know, they accelerated things, and probably because of there have been a lot of people waking up to the truth in the past years. And I think that, you know, the elites running the show, putting on this operation, started to get worried that they might not have an opportunity if they waited for everything to line up according to their ultimate plans. And so they've been making mistakes and doing things in a sloppy way, and that this is really a major opportunity because, you know, especially if you're the person there who's, you know, afraid of a totalitarian state and the Gestapo knocking on your door to hold you down and give you a vaccine, you know, those things are, of course, possible. But the way to prevent that is for each individual to simply make a decision for themselves that they won't participate in any aspect of what's going on. And the more people that do that, then the less likely there's going to be any progression. You know,
what you said is the most important thing ever. Don't cower in fear when the college students come as contact tracers. Invite them in and have coffee and tea and show them documents and educate them and love them. In fact, I see this as a major opportunity. I've told my wife and family, I said, don't get freaked out when they come, especially if I'm there. Or I said, if you want to invite them in, talk to them, because they want us to be violent to them so they can then make it paramilitary. I could see that psychology being set up very obviously.
No, I agree with you, and I might suggest a slightly different approach. I wouldn't invite them in your house because maybe they would see something there that would, you know.
You're right. Maybe talk to them in the front yard.
But yeah, in the front yard, on the front porch, and don't give them information, but instead, I mean, don't give them information about you. Instead, give them information about the science. Like if you, for example, print out the consent form for any one of the, looked at the Moderna, it says right on there in bold letters, this is not FDA approved. This is an experimental treatment, right? So a simple thing like that, it's right from the FDA.
And you can also hand them the Nuremberg Code. Have the Nuremberg Code printed up and just ready, and just say, you know, bullying someone into forced medical stuff's punishable by really bad stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked a lot about the Nuremberg Code. I've even talked about it with Vera Sharav, who is a survivor of the Holocaust, because she recognized so many parallels between the early Nazi regime and how they started to co-opt vulnerable people in the population for medical experiments and even euthanasia. And that's where the Nuremberg Code came from, right? And when I was a scientist in the medical school environment at Upstate Medical University, I had to, you know, I did human subjects research. And I had to go through this extensive training, and it covered the Nuremberg Code because that applies to all human subjects research. And it says that you have to inform the people about the risks of the experiment, and they have to voluntarily participate, and you have to take extra special safeguards to make sure that their voluntariness is genuine. And we've seen this completely ignored by every government in the world, and not only by governments, but, you know, universities, private companies have taken it upon themselves to dictate to us that we have to take experimental medical treatments if we want to participate with their goods and services.
Absolutely holding us hostage. Wow. Well, I've always been impressed with your work, so I learned about it over a year ago. Dr. Andrew Kaufman, What's the best place? We got one more segment left. When we come back, folks, write down the best place to find him. YouTube, Andrew Kaufman, and we'll give you more information on the other side. I'm Alex Jones, obviously with the Demonized and Attacked, Infowars.com and freeworldnews.tv, and we'll post this archive there as well. Well, a very impressive guest, Dr. Andrew Kaufman. We'll put up on screen for TV viewers his website so you can visit it. He has written books and is an expert on a lot of really serious issues like suicide and alcohol and so many other things. And so be sure and visit his website that you see there on screen. But the actual URL, Doc, for radio listeners, give people the actual URL for Dr. Andrew Kaufman's site.
It's andrewkaufmanmd.com. That's one F and one N, and MD like medical doctor.
All right, there it is on screen. Again, that's Dr. Andrew KaufmanMD.com. All right, we got 10 minutes left. You've imparted a lot of knowledge so far. I got a lot of questions, but what else do you want to get to? And I want to ask you, how do we fight back against this? I agree. We use this as an opportunity. They say every 2 or 3 generations face a real tyranny. We now have a real tyranny. At least we know what it is. We know the type of warfare it is. And so I think it's actually an opportunity. If folks get moving now against it, we're going to be able to defeat this generation's evil. If not, though, this is a very sticky problem.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually, see a kind of separation of our society into, 2 factions, like those of us who decide that we're not going to participate. We see the truth of what's going on, and we're going to essentially start doing things our own way. Because, if you're going to make a decision to not comply and not give in to what's going on right now, and I hope that everyone who's aware of the truth will take that approach, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, right? Like you have to resign yourself that, air travel, for example, is not going to be an option in the short term. And maybe that you're not going to be able to go overseas, across international borders.
Which is just an insane level of oppression and control. I mean, it's just
Absolutely.
0 to 500 in 1 second.
Absolutely. It is, unprecedented. And, we never thought that these freedoms would be threatened. But, if you look back a little over 100 years ago, there were no such thing as passports. So people could freely travel across borders without any hindrance whatsoever. You didn't have to, go to the government and wait 3 months to get a document and then have all sorts of problems. So really, this has been an incremental and a very subtle attack on our freedoms that has just accelerated out of control. And so we need to get back to taking responsibility for ourselves, and that includes our health, that includes learning how to do things for ourselves, that includes growing food and cooperating and forming communities and all these kind of things. And I believe that with each individual making these choices, and also studying law so that you can protect yourself, because you'll realize that all of the practices that they're imposing upon you are actually not lawful at all, but you need to be informed in order to stand up properly. And so we see, spontaneously in a grassroots, distributed, decentralized way that people are organizing and teaching each other about all of these types of informations. I mean, even things like, for example, so-called free energy devices, or devices that are alternative, like tractors that run on water, and spinning magnetite discs that can generate electricity for, a decade. Those are the kind of things that are going to really make these things possible to be, off the grid, but still have an amazing quality of life and get back to our relationship with nature.
Well, that's right, Dr. Kaufman. My instincts, I'm 47 now. I always ignored my instincts when I was younger, unless it was chasing a girl. Every time I go with my instincts, which is really our unconscious mind, our genetic memories, whatever you want to call it, whatever people want to see it as, is your basic instinct, has always been right. And all my instinct says is, go to an area, get a farm, get to know everybody, learn how to be self-sufficient. But that's all my genetics, all my brain is telling me. Your view or your psychological study, I don't know your background, but obviously I mesh with what you're saying. It all makes perfect sense. What would you call that drive? Where do you think that comes from? And obviously we better listen to it, because now it's not a tap on the shoulder. It's like, do it, do it, do it, do it. I mean, it's like a banging noise in my head. Get out of the city, get self-sufficient. And everybody I talk to is that's dialed in, that's tuned in, is saying the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, most of my efforts are toward that goal as well right now. And I think what we need to realize is that from the time we were brought into the world, we have really been indoctrinated to a specific cultural phenomenon, right? As well as the compulsory schooling system. So where we, you know, accept authority figures' word as the gospel, where we don't question things, we don't, you know, challenge ideas or think for ourselves, and we don't take care of ourselves. We expect other people, you know, to be taken care of by the state, exactly the so-called parens patriae philosophy of law. And if you can separate that influence and realize the fallacy of it and get in touch with your relationship, you know, with consciousness, with nature, with the universe, that's when you'll receive these kind of signals that tells you, you know, we have to get back to our true nature as men and women, right? Which is to interact with the land, with the forest, with the ecology, and with each other in communities, not to interact with technology, not to be, you know, slaves for a wage that just basically allows us to subsist. And then as soon as we get an iota of free time, all we want to do is escape, drink beer, watch sports, play video games, you know, watch TV, and instead of having a real meaningful sense of purpose in our life, which we can now regain with this amazing opportunity.
Instead of that magic moment with your wife or your friends, your children, on the edge of a cliff when the stars come up and you hear the cicadas and the frogs, and it's like you're just magic, total satisfaction and fulfillment, versus on an iPhone or a computer doing work. You just feel your humanity being drained off. It's just not who we are.
That's an amazing visual representation, Alex. And, you know, all you have to do is look at the World Economic Forum's vision for the future, right? And you see that it doesn't involve those aspects, and that they want us to have all of our social interactions to be virtual, right? Because that is quote unquote safe. But that is not human, and it doesn't provide the basic elements that we need in our life, like human contact.
And isn't that a form of
affection.
worship? It's like they said the Greek gods died in allegory because they weren't worshipped anymore. They want us worshiping their AI. They want us only interfacing with it, watching their porn via computer, doing everything through it, watching people eat food on a computer instead of separating ourselves from it. We become slaves of the tool. It becomes the master. It becomes the robot god.
And notice all of those examples you mentioned put us in a lower consciousness, a lower state of being, right? It's about decadence and you know, like the pornography is a great example, because, you know, we have this amazing divine ability to connect with other people and have this amazing intimacy and to bring new lives into the world. And that is, you know, can be totally corrupted by getting people addicted to pornography and taking all of the specialness, all of the sacred elements out of it, so that it puts you in that lower base level. Right, and then you know,
you said it's stealing the very life force.
Yes, it is.
All right,
absolutely.
Doc, I'm impressed. Please come back for a commercial-free interview. We got 2 minutes left. Dr. Andrew Kaufman, again, we'll put your website on screen for TV viewers and radio listeners. Other points you want to make?
Well, you know, there are so many ways we can go, but you know, I think it's really important to just be open to new information and to figure out what's going on, and always check people's sources. You know, don't trust anything that I reported on this show. Always look for a confirmatory evidence, look at the primary source material, make your own opinion. If you're not capable of understanding what's going on right now, then you know, spend some time to learn how to understand it. But I really believe that it's more than doable for every, you know, average person out there of average intelligence can take a few hours, understand what's going on, and then that'll put you in a position to consider all of the aspects about the future that we've been talking about, that you can take independent action, you can reclaim your human nature, you can develop communities, and you can have a really rich and meaningful life without participating in vaccine passports and, other events.
So, Dr. Kaufman, what you're saying is we have a choice to make, but we need to know the choice is there. The system wants to keep us so confused and so dazed, we don't know there's a choice. We can build the future we want, but we have to make the choice.
That's right. And, keeping changing the rules is a tactic to keep us off balance and make sure that we just go along with it because we don't even know what we're supposed to go along with, right? But, of course, you can also look at that and say, well, these things don't even make sense. They don't even fit what people say. Like people who are vaccinated, they don't believe that the vaccine actually does what it's supposed to do. Otherwise, why would they care about what anyone else does if they can't get the illness, right? That's what they say.
All common sense. Dr. Andrew Kaufman, thank you so much for the time. God bless you.
Thank you, Alex. Great to be here.
We'll be back with hour number 4, Mike Adams and Tommy Robinson. Stay with us. Tommy Robinson is a folk hero in the United Kingdom. 12, 13 years ago, found them smuggling little girls, kidnapping them, grooming them, raping them, and killing them. And years after he exposed it, 5, 6 years after it came out in the news, in the one town he talked about, thousands of kidnapped little girls, some of them murdered. TR.news, Tommy Robinson. I've been trying to get him on for a year. He's been gone. He's been disappeared. I bought him cameras. I'm not bitching. I'm just saying I got him cameras, gave him the money to do it. He got thrown in prison. I wanted to film about the grooming. I wanted to film about the boats coming across from Europe with the Islamic invaders. Well, I get a call at like 5 a.m. this morning, and Tommy doesn't know. He says, I'm going to find out later. I'll talk to you this afternoon. But then I noticed that it's already uploaded, this trailer, and so I wanted you to see this for the new film, because it's a big national news story. Here it is out of the BBC. Tommy Robinson loses libel case with Jamal Hijazi. Now, remember that. Remember this Piers Morgan attacking him, saying, oh, the evil white people, the evil English were waterboarding a poor Muslim. But what really happened? Well, Tommy covered that, and they say he lost a libel case today. Well, here's a trailer for a film I know he was going to be releasing soon. We'll ask him when it's coming out in a moment. Here it is.
Everybody was exposing the scumbag that did this, so I hope gets severe retribution. I hope his parents take action, right? Never mind anything else. What are you producing here with this vermin?
I'm here because I face a court case. I'm being prosecuted. It's gone to the High Court, and I have to prove. I made a video stating that it was a lie, stating that Jamal wasn't innocent, and telling some facts about Jamal beating up girls, an instance I'd been warned about by the members of this community to tell the truth about what happened at this school. You've got everything here. Cameras, glasses. I don't wear glasses, so that's going to be awkward. I feel like James Bond.
It is a mess, but it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for Bailey. The idea that people would maraud the streets looking for him was appalling.
Do you know that one where he hit that girl with a hockey stick, wasn't it?
We were playing hockey with a teacher called Mr. Cattell and just felt a really sharp pain in my back, and he'd swung the hockey stick over his head and hit me in the spine with it. It knocked me to my knees.
Jamal grabbed him by his tie, which just threw him against the wall, cracked his head open against the back of the wall and just kept throwing him against the wall. This kid was out unconscious already. That's just malicious. That's just intent to kill.
If you could sum up Jamal then, after meeting him, if you could sum him up in a few words, how would you describe him?
Liar.
Because Bailey's life was destroyed.
Yeah.
The whole country turned on him over this. This is the accommodation that Bailey's mother and children were being relocated to. No one cared for this family. They were all casualties of this lie. The media should be held accountable for this. It went to China, it went to Australia, it went to everywhere. It wasn't global news, they made it global news. Every kid I spoke to that he attacked was younger.
Yeah, Bullock.
Jamal, who Jamal?
Yeah.
Everyone's confirming what Jamal was like, including school staff. But as soon as I mentioned this camera, as soon as I mentioned court, I need someone to come to court, they just totally silenced straight away. No one can have said that.
His dad called my wife fat and stuff, and then he put me in a headlock, and then my mate pushed him off me.
I believe that's how he broke his arm.
Yeah.
This is about as much as proving in court as proving to you, the British public, that I was the only journalist in the country who told the truth about what happened in this community.
I call it a perfect storm. I was getting
emails from Pakistan, from Australia, from America, telling me to resign. I came into teaching to help poor people, and they got rid of me.
How much money have they spent on this lie? Person after person's life destroyed, while the council, your local council, give away hundreds of thousands of pounds to make sure that the truth can never be told.
That's my mum's orders. 48 hours ago, family country doxed their address.
You don't need to be scared, Sonny, because they're purposely just doing that.
Because they do know where we live.
No, mate.
Oh, by the way, Tommy, I am gonna mince your kids, mate.
All right, so it's Silence, an InfoWars film presented by Tommy Robinson, coming soon. Tommy, we barely talked. You couldn't talk this morning. You said you're going into court. You talked to me later. I don't know what's happened since then. What's going on with the film? What happened in court today?
That's why I've been trying to get hold of you, Alex. So, crazily, I'll ask you, I'll probably need you to delete that promo. We can have a discussion off there about where we go, what we do with the film. I don't think, judging by what you're saying...
I'm sorry, but we haven't talked in weeks. I mean, the trailer, that was supposed to be... So we need to take that down?
Judging by the injunction, I've been served with an injunction today, yeah? Now, it's your film, it's your footage, it's produced for you, but we do have to have a
Okay, well, I haven't talked since... Okay, so I didn't know this happened. You were just telling me you were going to court today. What's happened? We'll take it down if you want, but we're not allowed to show the trailer for the film?
I have an injunction that prevents me from... There's so much I can't say. So basically, with this case, so everyone understands what's gone on, I went and wore a hidden camera, okay? And I approached school members of staff. And I had the head teacher of the school, I had the head of the isolation unit, I had dinner ladies, I had office workers, I had all of them telling, openly on camera, totally corroborating the version of events that I had discussed. I'm not allowed to re-say any of what's been said by the people.
For folks that don't know, they had a reported Muslim from Syria in school beating people up. They demonized the kids that fought back. You did a story on it. You just lost a libel case that you said was going to be rigged. I knew months ago you talked about it. I saw you on the news. And so now they're saying, wait, you can't even put out a film documenting that you told the truth? Wow.
So basically what I done is I went and I interviewed people and I wore hidden footage and I got all these different people talking about what happened. And Alex, the craziest part of this film, yeah, I don't think you've had a chance to watch the entirety. You've got it, but judging by what you said there, on this film...
No, I mean, I'll be honest, we're funding a lot of films. I know it's been in for a few weeks. I haven't watched it because I was just waiting for you to... Okay, so, yeah, tell me.
Where is... Basically... When this story blew up, the story blew up that there was a horrible racist white English bully and there was a poor victim Syrian refugee. And that story was made into global news. It was taken to CNN. It was taken all over. Every politician, celebrity, stars, they all pushed this story and this narrative.
It's like Kyle Rittenhouse. The ultimate evil is fighting back.
We were told that because the Syrian boy had his arm in plaster cast, and we were told that was done in an incident of racist bullying. Yeah, that's what we were told by the media. Now I was contacted by parents, and I saw online one young girl make serious allegations, and another young girl's mum makes serious allegations. So I simply contacted them. This is before my involvement. Then I saw that one girl deleted them, and another woman put out a retraction. So when I went and wore undercover footage. The mother that done the retraction, I got on camera saying, Tommy, I only retracted it because they threatened to rape me. We have to live here, yeah? So that's why she retracted her story. The other little girl said she was terrified, she was worried. Now, the scary part of this is that why this was blowing up onto the world's news, the reality of all of the school records, of all of the witness statements, of all of the emails, they prove a totally different story, and they prove that the school knew the truth, they prove the police knew the truth, they prove everyone knew the truth. And I sat there thinking, why is no one defending this other English child? Why is no one speaking the reality of the situation here? And when I went with my undercover cameras, I went to one Asian teacher and he said, Tommy, I've took the money. I have all of this on camera. I said, what do you mean you've took the money? He goes, they paid me. I said, who paid you? Kirklees Council. That is the local council government for that area. I said, what did they pay you for? He said, I've signed a non-disclosure agreement. I'm not allowed to talk about it. I said, how much did they pay you? £18,000. Then I have the head teacher, and this is all documented. Then I have the head teacher, but the only problem is, I'm now under an injunction. I can't show everyone the evidence that I have that totally proves the corruption.
Okay, well, listen, we're out of time. You got to come back on tomorrow. I got to talk to you once it's over because Mike Adams is coming up. I know it's a libel case. I know they claim you lost it. I know you got the proof that's bull. They don't want you to put out the film showing this is a setup to say that Muslims are perfect, British are bad. I mean, I get that. I saw it in the news. It was a setup. And so I'm wondering where you've been for a year. It's good to have you back. God bless you. How do people find you? TR.news?
See, at the minute, just on Telegram. Tommy Robinson News on Telegram is where our politics are shared. I don't actually mean having access
Tommy
to
Robinson. We got Mike Adams coming up. He doesn't mind. You'll do 2 more minutes on the other side to finish up. All right, I'm about to duck out of here because Mike Adams is always loaded for bear, and I don't want to disrespect him from naturalnews.com. But Tommy Robinson called me cryptically this morning. I got to be in court. I can't tell you what's going on. Don't know about that film I'm making for you, but you got it. And then I'm just here on air, him saying, delete the trailer off of Bandot Video, and that he's been ordered, it's in the BBC News, to not talk about the Muslims who are as pure as the driven snow and perfect angel cakes. So I haven't seen the film. I don't know what's in it. I know we got a copy of it because we financed it. We just financed a big film about the boats coming across too from France with National File. So Tommy, just in closing, you're coming back tomorrow at noon to give us updates. I can talk to you off air because I don't want to sound half-cocked. This is all happening live on air right now. You made a film to challenge what they claimed you were wrong. They're saying you can't put that out now, or what's happening?
Alex, I sat today and I filmed myself getting the verdict because I've done it via video link. And when I got the verdict that I lost, people would be surprised, but I was like, get in there, yeah? For the reason that the film proves the corruption of the media. It proves it. They were told the truth. I have recordings of the chair of governors telling us they sat with journalists, they told them the truth. It was hidden. So it proves the corruption. I have the proof of the corruption of the local council who are paying all the teachers to remain silent and not to tell the truth. I have all the recordings of the head teacher downwards saying that, yeah? But I know
a big international story, you know, kind of like we saw with the Catholic kids at the Capitol, and they said they were attacking people. It wasn't true. This is basically a similar story where people are being attacked, they fight back, they're being demonized, and so now they don't want you putting this film out.
And they don't want the film going out, but this would then prove what is the unholy alliance. It is the alliance of the media, it's the alliance of the politicians, it's the alliance of our judicial systems. And all of it working together hand in hand, along with corrupt lawyers, okay, and far left extremists, because this film shows a campaign of hate, intimidation, put against everyone. It's the reason it was called Silence, because everyone from start to finish have been silenced. And I sit here now with a perfect name for the film because I've been silenced because I've got a gagging order. I've got a gagging order that I can't have anything to do with the film that you have.
Okay, well, let me just say this. We have the film. I'm going to go watch it after the show. And Tommy, I pay for the film, so I'm going to make the decision whether I'm going to put the film out or not. But the trailer's going to stay up. I'm not the Soviet Union yet. My ancestors didn't die for freedom, and fight Hitler to live like this. Silence, an InfoWars film presented by Tommy Robinson, stays up. I don't care what the Islamicists and all their armies say. So the trailer stays up. I hope it goes viral now, and I hope it gets out there because we need freedom of speech now more than ever. Join me tomorrow at noon to give us the latest and have time to flesh all this out. But Tommy, you've been gone for a year. I know they've attacked your house, attacked your family, attacked your wife. I know it's been rough, but you're ready to speak. So we'll talk about where Tommy Robinson's been tomorrow in like 21 hours, okay?
Okay, sound, Alex. We'll talk off air as well, yeah?
I'll call you right after this, okay?
Thanks.
I haven't talked to him since before court. All right. There you go. The fight for freedom continues. The fight for free speech continues. Those that don't want you to be able to make your own decision, they're your enemy. Mike Adams, naturalnews.com, takes over.
All right, Alex. Well, and by the way, I don't mind at all being delayed. What Tommy Robinson is doing is so critical, super important for our world. And that sounds like it's the most important story happening right now. So I'm glad you're on it. And I would just say to people, multiple platforms. Take that trailer and post it to different platforms, including Brighteon, BitChute, and Rumble, and everywhere that you can. And, we'll respect it. If InfoWars wants us to take that down, we would respect that. But until then, let's get the word out. Let's help Tommy Robinson have a voice, because he's being gagged and silenced, as he's talking about. He's a very courageous individual. He has a crucial message for freedom, and God bless him. God bless him. Prayers to Tommy Robinson for his safety and his work, because he's kind of like, it sounds like, for this project, he's doing the Project Veritas version of this in the UK. And the UK is such a police state. The speech police and the vaccine passport police, it's so out of control. It's so tyrannical. I feel sorry for the people in the UK who are trying to retain their freedom. And I also feel blessed for what we have in places like Texas, where we have so much more freedom because we're in a red state, a red county and a red state. And we've got the Bill of Rights, the Constitution that still has elements remaining that haven't yet been completely destroyed by the Biden regime, which I know they're working on. But we still have the freedom to speak right here on this show, on this platform, Infowars.com. And by God, we're going to exercise that freedom in the name of humanity. And that's what this is about. So just a note to the producers there, and for Alex, if there's something else breaking, obviously, you could just jump in and go. I mean, it's your platform, it's your show. Until then, I'm going to bring you the information that I had planned for this segment, and maybe it'll get interrupted, and that's totally fine, because this is reality. Reality is dynamic. We have to react to events. And again, God bless Tommy Robinson and his work. What I've got for you coming up today, let's see, really in just a few minutes here, I've got a guest coming on, Bob Griswold, who is an expert in, well, so many things that have been happening around the world. And we're going to talk about the multi-layered collapse that's taking place and what you can do to help defend yourself against that collapse. And you got to understand there's a desperation on the part of the globalists. And the desperation is that they know that things are turning. There's an awakening. There's awareness now. Things are really turning. And by the way, I don't see the clock, so just let me know when we're going to break. But things are turning, and because of that, the globalists are extremely desperate to cover their tracks, which means they're going to release as many terrorism events against humanity as they can manage. There are financial terrorism events that they are engineering. There's food scarcity that they are engineering. There's probably a grid down scenario, at least regionally, that's being planned. And many other scenarios, maybe World War III, maybe UN occupation of America at some point. They're planning so many things, more bioweapons, more vaccines containing nanotech weaponized systems to exterminate as many human beings as they can. So they know they're going to get caught, and that's the good news in all of this. They know they're going down eventually, but the bad news is they're going to unleash every form of terrorism against humanity between now and then in order to try to cover their tracks. So we are living through the best of times and the worst of times, as the novel says. Things are going to be as bad or worse as anything you've ever experienced in your life. But if we survive that, then we earn the right to be here to witness what happens on the other side of this. And on the other side of this, we're going to see the indictment and the imprisoning of these criminals against humanity who are demonic, demon-possessed criminals and destroyers of worlds. They're trying to destroy our civilization. They're going down. They're going down. Humanity wins. God wins. We win in the end. But there are tribulations between here and there that we've got to get through. So coming up after this break, we're going to have Bob Griswold joining us to talk about how we prepare ourselves for that survival, how we get through all of this, and what knowledge, wisdom, and maybe some tools that we need to make it through all of that. I'm Mike Adams here on Infowars.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break with that interview with Bob Griswold. All right, you're watching the Alex Jones Show on Infowars.com. I'm Mike Adams, filling in for the rest of this hour, and I've got a special guest for you that's going to bring some analysis and insight into the severity of the collapse and chaos situation we're now facing, because globalists are trying to distract us from their murderous crimes of building biological weapons and unleashing them against humanity in the form of COVID, and also, of course, COVID vaccines, which are also weaponized to cause mass extermination. So we're going to have our work cut out for us to survive all of this. We're going to bring on now Bob Griswold from ReadyMadeResources.com, and Bob is a trusted analyst who's got a lot of important opinions and experience in these areas on an international scope. Bob, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thank you so much for having me here. You know, even as you were talking, I'm looking at a news report right now. It says widespread internet outage. Brief disruptions of retail, financial, travel websites down. DNS failure. Fixed ? 9/11 outages reported along East Coast. This isn't going to stop, Mike. And what my concern is this, is that people read this, China and what they're doing, the vaccine and what they're doing, the moral breakdown of society, what's happening there. And people can get so overwhelmed with what you would call raw intelligence. We read it every day. You and I read it every day. But at the end of the day, you have to take that raw intelligence and make a product out of it that suits you, that serves you. And that's the real trick in doing it, because we all see the same news, but a lot of people don't do anything. Some people do some things. Some people do the wrong things. The real key is taking this information that we see every day, the moral breakdown, the vaccines, the pushing of more lockdowns coming on the United States, these shutdowns, these cyber hackings that we see shutting down gasoline, meat, whatever. It goes to all about the economy. This massive infusion of debt spending, chasing fewer and fewer goods. So, you know, if you leave it there, people could get really, you know, confused.
But Bob, let's talk about what you just said. The Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader, just came out. I think it was this morning, or perhaps yesterday. But he said that if people don't get the shots, then we're going back into lockdowns. So this is the GOP leader of the Senate. Basically, I mean, it sounds a lot like a threat. Like, hey, you better get vaccinated, or we're going to punish you. We're going to make you a slave in your own home, or a prisoner in your own home. And then they're going to systematically destroy the economy with a universal basic income payments to these people to get the culture used to not working. But my question to you, I mean, you know all this, the listeners know all this. How bad are things going to get if they succeed in all their plans of all the lockdowns and the economic destruction? Because people don't know. You've seen things overseas that would give people nightmares. You've seen collapse. What does it look like? What do you think's coming?
Well, what it looks like is very unpleasant. People will sell things that they'd never even think they'd sell, including family members. Anything you have to put food on your table, people will do. I've seen it. It's very unpleasant to think about. It's, you know, where you have a mother offering you a young child for a certain amount of money, and you can basically do with that child as you want. Now, we think that offends our sensibilities so much that we'd never do it here. But in this country today, millions of children have to sell themselves in one way or another just to meet basic necessities. We just try to put it out of sight. And this is what I was saying. Americans right now, those watching this program, watching your program, and other people like that, need to take this information and decide how do I use this to benefit my family? Because that's the real thing. If you do not take this information now and do have a plan that's gonna, you know, fit your family's needs, you are going to go the way that they want you to go, and that's to the slaughterhouse, you know, the death camp, whatever it will be. And Mike, you know, this isn't hyperbole anymore. This is what these people are saying. The Georgia Guidestones, they want to eliminate billions of people off the planet. I mean, you know, when Adolf Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, if you believed it, you acted on it. If you just thought it was hyperbole and just the rantings of a madman, then you ignored it, and you ended up probably in a death camp, you know, being gassed to death or worked to death. So that's the choice Americans.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but tens of millions of Americans are oblivious to what's happening. Mostly people on the left they're taking the vaccine shots. They don't know that they're not really vaccines. It's gene therapy, maybe transhumanism tech. It's hard to say exactly what the outcome is going to be. But they think the economy is going to get back to normal if just everybody would take the shot. They think that Biden is somehow good for America when he's allowing hundreds of thousands of illegals to invade the southern border every month now, month after month. I mean, they're living in an oblivious, fake reality. Bob, isn't it true? Their cities will collapse if this is allowed to continue, and their cities will become death traps. They will kill themselves.
Yeah, their cities are collapsing. I mean, all you have to do is just look at history right now. History, what did Mark Twain say? It doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. I mean, we are looking at just a massive infusion of fake money into this economy right now. Half the money in the economy right now was added within the last year. Think of that. Half of it that's floating around the economy was added in the last year. And at the same time, on top of that, we've had a major disruption in shipping, trucking, and all of the manner of delivery of goods. I mean, right now, I have a desk right here that I have in my new office. It took me 6 months to get this desk. I ordered it, and they told me a month, but it's 6 months later, it finally showed up. That's what you're looking at. And so we have all this money right now chasing fewer and fewer goods, and that's how they're going to eliminate
you're exactly
so many people.
But let me jump in with a question, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you might not be able to hear me because of the audio setup. But so you're in a commercial business. I'm in a commercial business. Alex Jones is in a commercial business. All three of us see the same thing. I want you to describe what are you seeing with commercial supply lines, because I'm seeing a collapse in commercial quantities of food. Like we buy millions of pounds of food a year and so on. It's collapsing. They're telling us they can't guarantee food after 90 days from July 1st, by the way. What are you seeing? Because you're in a different business, like night vision and stuff like that. What are you seeing?
Chicken. That's one meat right now that's becoming scarcer and scarcer. All you have to do is look at what the big companies are doing right now. Supermarkets are stocking up more than they normally do. Fast food restaurants, you see them stocking up extra food because they know a shortage is coming. We can ignore that. You can ignore that data point and say, well, it'll always be there because it's always been there. But what's going to happen when all of a sudden you don't have your vaccine passport? You don't have the money because your $10 that used to buy a pound of chicken, now it's $50 and you can't buy it. All these things are coming into play. So the question is not really to just address the issues, but how do you fix it? And there's only one way to fix it right now. The money that you have, realize that in 6 months, it's going to be worth maybe half of what it's worth right now. And if you don't take that money and put it into goods and tangibles that your family needs, in 6 months from now, instead of buying a pound of chicken, you'll buy a half a pound with the same amount of money. And also, all of a sudden, your savings and all that is depreciated, and you'll be working harder and harder for less and less. And at the same time, many Americans won't be able to do it, and they'll just get sick and die. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
You're saying we've already entered essentially hyperinflation, at least in the food sector, because that's beyond the definition of hyperinflation, and I think you're right. Yeah.
I mean, just the lumber price.
Well, yeah, and then copper, aluminum, steel. Try to build a steel building these days. But look, Bob, we're going to go to break here shortly, and we're going to have you continue with us on the other side of that. But I want to specifically help people address this issue of when they understand what we're talking about, but they have a family member who doesn't get it. How do you wake up a family member so that they can get prepared for what's coming and you don't end up committing, a lack of preparedness suicide? So we're going to talk about that when we come back. I'm Mike Adams here. This is the Alex Jones Show, the 4th hour today, and we're talking with Bob Griswold. So stay with us after this break. We'll be right back with more on this topic to help you stay alive. All right, welcome back. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger here. This is the Alex Jones Show on Infowars.com. I'm the publisher of naturalnews.com. We've got a guest with us for this segment, Bob Griswold from Ready Made Resources. But real quick, just a comment. I don't know what you saw during the break, but I saw, an ad, Alex and Mike Lindell getting together commercially with MyPillow. And I think it's awesome. Mike Lindell really walks his talk. And folks, if you want this country to survive all of what's coming, it's absolutely crucial to vote with your consumer dollars for those platforms and those individuals who are fighting for America. And it's mypillow.com, and use promo code ALEX, and you'll be supporting both InfoWars as well as Mike Lindell's operation. So mypillow.com, promo code ALEX for great discounts. I'm gonna get some towels and pillowcases myself, by the way. So getting back to our topic of this segment, Bob, we left off with the question of, a lot of people are fully aware of what's happening, but they have family members or friends or coworkers who are completely oblivious. And this is now really a life or death situation. If you don't prepare, you're very likely to not survive what's coming, especially if the financial collapse unfolds as we think it may. I mean, people are going to be wiped out and destitute, literally overnight, going to wake up, the dollar's worthless. How can people, because you've been successful at this in many cases, how can people talk to those who are zombified and awaken them to the reality of what's happening?
Well, sometimes you can't talk to them, Mike. Sometimes you can, and you have to make that determination. If you're a mother and you have a husband who's not into it, you have to look at your children and say, what am I going to do? I have to take something, and you're going to have to understand, I am going to set food aside as much as I can. If you're a husband and it's vice versa, you have a bigger picture than just yourself. We have children, we have family, and we need to make sure we can take care of them. I love history. I always challenge people historically. Show me a case, a situation where a nation's doing what we're doing that has not ended in absolute disaster and lots of body bags. In the Black Book of Communism, it says one thing godless states have in common is a lot of body bags. Well, America is headed to that situation. You throw on top of it, these planned outages, these planned shortages, the planned vaccine cards where you won't be able to access your money or food without your vaccine card. But you also look what's happening out west right now. The severe, catastrophic 1,000-year drought, locusts eating food. It's at our door. So the thing again, what Americans need to do right now, our brothers and sisters that are listening to this program, you need to go out and make a list. You need to take some hard time, make a list of what your family needs, and then start accumulating it, because every day that goes by, I can promise you that dollar is worth less and less. You're going to see smaller packaging, you're going to see rationing, you're going to see products unavailable, and eventually you won't be able to get it at all because it'll be for the elite, and they will starve you into death is what they'll do. I like church history. There's a church father from about 200 AD, Hippolytus. And I was talking to Steve about him the other day. In 200 AD, he wrote that this evil system at the end, the Antichrist system, would use food as a coercion mechanism to make you take his mark. It's in the history of the church that actually said that. They will use food to coerce you into taking the mark, the vaccine, whatever it is. So while we still have
famine and plague and war, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, it's all right there. Right?
While you still have this brief moment left where your dollar's depreciating, the food supply is diminishing, you better act, because if you're not,